Hello there.
This is where the fun begins.
What's up guys, Unofficial Star Wars here. I hope you're all doing well, and in this video we are going to be discussing a new tease for a potential Obi wan Kenobi Season 2 on Disney+. That is exactly what we are going to be discussing in today's video. Let's go ahead and hop right on into it. In this video we are going to be taking a read from the direct article. I'll have their article linked in the description down below for you guys to check out there as well. As a read, Deborah Chow, the director for Lucasfilm's Obi wan Kenobi on Disney+, commented on a hypothetical Season 2 of the hit Star Wars show recently. The Disney+ show finished up last June of last year, but there's still been no active movement on a second season. Ahead of the season finale, however, there were whispers that Season 2 was in the potential early works and in an early development. The latest word on the possible continuation of the Kenobi show came from Lucasfilm president Kathleen Kennedy herself, who shared that a second season is not in active development, but that the potential was still there for something to happen down the road. And so, while speaking recently on Deadline's Crew Call podcast, Obi wan Kenobi director Deborah Chow spoke about the likelihood of Ewan McGregor's show getting a Season 2. Deborah Chow had admitted that the first set of episodes in Season 1 was always conceived as a limited series, but never say never, saying that, in full quote, "This was always conceived as a limited series, and I'm sure that you can tell from the story that it is closed. We did obviously seem to tell one big story. Who knows though, there's 10 more years before A New Hope starts, so never say never. But for this particular project, it really was conceived to be a limited series," ending that quote right there. And so really straight off the bat, this sounds very familiar to what Deborah Chow has kind of always said about the Obi wan Kenobi show and it having a potential Season 2. She always seems to come back to saying that, well, the first season and this overall show has always been conceived, the way that this overall idea was always thought up to be just really a season kind of one type of show and done as a limited series, and that they necessarily weren't planning to do anything else or more with the overall show. However, something very familiar and similar that we have seen within the Star Wars franchise that the Obi wan Kenobi show does do is that it does kind of leave it open-ended, and this can go in several different directions depending on the different kind of mediums of whatever they want to use for continuing on the story, if they want to continue on this story, where we see Reva go off and kind of her doing her own thing, and also having Obi wan Kenobi doing his own thing with Qui-Gon Jinn, or maybe Leia and her whole thing. There's different characters that they can kind of go with in a Season 2, and with what they want to do and could do with that for one thing, but then also in the fact of they are able to use other mediums. They could use books and comics, which would probably be the most likely thing for them to do. They could do an animated show, a actual movie, or a video game. There's so many different mediums out there that they can work around and do. This doesn't necessarily have to be a Season 2 on Disney Plus for them to move this overall narrative or continue on this overall narrative of what the Obi wan Kenobi show had kind of began and what they would want to do in an effort to continue it. I say that this is similar to other Star Wars projects in the Star Wars franchise, really specifically with what A New Hope had done, of where they didn't necessarily kill off Darth Vader, but they kind of just sent him flying around and off. They didn't know necessarily if this was going to perform well, or if they wanted to do an Empire Strikes Back movie. However, they left it open-ended, but at the same time closed about just about every other thing with the overall narrative of A New Hope, but still left some things open for them to kind of pick back up if they did a sequel to that, which of course they evidently did. So really in that same thinking can be applied here for when thinking about the Obi wan Kenobi show, and we're also able to think outside of the box, think about maybe other mediums that they could or would use, like for maybe a movie as I had mentioned, or a game or a comic book series or a book novel series type of thing. Now, many Star Wars fans out there will know that the Obi wan Kenobi show, Disney Plus show, was originally going to be a set of movies. The Obi wan Kenobi show is going to be 3 movies in a trilogy, and so when the original writer had spoken about the Obi wan Kenobi show and its future of where it could or would go, he says that the first season of Obi wan Kenobi acts as the first movie of what they had originally had planned for that first movie of what the Obi wan Kenobi trilogy was going to be. So even then they were thinking of ideas way back when, and really for who and what they wanted to do with it going forward. Of course, these things fluctuate, they change around, they adapt, essentially, and the thing was with Obi wan Kenobi in this day and age was, well, Disney Plus shows. There weren't necessarily ready to step back into or dive back into with their Star Wars movies quite yet. So really, this here all being said, what could an Obi-Wan Season 2 really have in store? What could it mean? Why is it important? Why is this a story that we would want to see actually happen here? As Deborah Chow, the director of Obi wan Kenobi, had recently pointed out, there's a large chunk of time between Obi wan Kenobi Season 1 and A New Hope, roughly 10 years or so, meaning that there's plenty of an opportunity for more interesting stories to be told. And so, for one, perhaps Lucasfilm can orchestrate a crossover between Ewan McGregor's Obi wan Kenobi and Cameron Monaghan's Cal Kestis at some point in this timeline. It's one of those things that simply makes sense, something fans that have been asking for since the recent Disney Plus series had landed, is wanting to have Cal Kestis mentioned or show up and meet up with Obi wan Kenobi during these events. Now, this also kind of brings me back around to what I had mentioned earlier on, is that they can still also continue this Obi wan Kenobi story narrative during this time period of when the Disney Plus show is taking place outside of other mediums, but they're also able to do it outside and with other shows. Maybe for a Jedi Fallen Order / Survivor threequel for a third game installment, there they could include something with Obi wan Kenobi, because those things are taking place roughly around the same time. Same thing for the Andor show, or same thing for the Bad Batch, roughly, as I had mentioned. Maybe for the Bad Batch they'd have to include a couple of time jumps. But of course, who's to say that Obi wan Kenobi can't show up in other, I guess, Disney Plus shows or other Star Wars stories, essentially? That there is another huge possible potential thing that they could do. One of the biggest dangling threads of the overall Kenobi show is the future of Moses Ingram's Reva and what could happen with her character. Now, I will have to admit, for Reva and her character, they left that pretty directly closed. They seem to give her a very good conclusion, I really think, overall with her character. She can kind of go off and do her own thing now. She can live a good life, essentially. Exploring what happened to her and the Inquisitor program as a whole would be a great future story for the franchise. I'm pretty sure with what the current canon consists of is that all the Inquisitors pretty much try to betray Vader and all go up against him, and he just kind of slaughters all of them. That's within a comic book. So maybe a what if is, what if they did with an Obi wan Kenobi Season 2, they bring back Reva and her character, she wants to do some good, and she helps some of the Inquisitors escape this dark path and brings them back to the light. It is really just one of those what if things. Of course, there's Obi-Wan himself. Perhaps more Qui-Gon Jinn might be in order, as audiences witness the Jedi's late master teaching him how to master his Force Ghost abilities, something that we do see later down the road in the overall canon timeline in A New Hope, of course. Anyway, of course, I would love to hear all of your thoughts and opinions in the comment section down below. What would you want to see with a potential Obi wan Kenobi Season 2? I would love to hear what you guys all think in the comment section down below. And until next time, I'll catch you guys in the next video. Thanks so much for watching today's video. Have a great one, guys. May the Force be with you as always. This has been Unofficial Star Wars. Peace out.